Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Hi there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 546 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. It was a big weekend, people. There was a lot going on. We got a lot of hot takes to give you about the stuff that was going on. I am Jason Evans. I'll be your host on this edition of the DBR podcast. Joining me, my two buddies, my partners in crime, Donald Wine. Donald, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing okay. I went up to Baltimore for the Lions-Ravens game, and if anyone knows, that was not fun for me because the Lions took a huge L. But that's what the Lions do sometimes. And you know what? Football's football. We're going to get back up tomorrow. We're going to get back right at it.
There you go. And Sam Klein is with us. Sam, looks like it was an interesting weekend for you.
Yeah, I'm not going to hang for too long. I don't know if you can tell. My voice is a little shot. I was at a bachelor party this weekend for one of my closest lifelong friends, a guy I've known since I was like 5 years old. And anyway, we got after it. It was pretty fun, but I feel like I'm going to curl up and die now. So I did manage to watch both Countdown and the football game this weekend. So if you want, I can give you my quickest version of takes from each of these, and I'll let you guys handle the longer conversation if that's okay.
Why don't we start?
I think that is a fine idea, sir. Go ahead and give us what you will, and then get that head on a pillow and rest. Well, Sam Klein, take it away.
All right, Countdown. I hope we're gonna get into what is the big man rotation looking like. I think the biggest high level takeaway is Christian Reeves was starting in this game. Sean Stewart was not, and was coming off the bench. I know in addition to TJ Power, I know that we've talked a lot this offseason about what exactly is Jon Scheyer going to be doing around Kyle Filipowski in the big man rotation. And I feel like all that we saw on Friday night complicates that. So hopefully you guys get into your, I don't have answers. I only honestly continue to have questions. The guards I'm very excited about. I think we mentioned on recent episodes that Duke's guard rotation looks incredibly deep this year, and a lot of different pieces that Jon Scheyer, I'm sure, is going to be excited to mix and match. On the football side, I don't know where we're at with thinking that maybe putting Riley Leonard in there wasn't the best idea on Saturday against Florida State. It seemed like he had moments where he knew what he was doing, but also like he was still pretty rusty, and maybe he hurt himself again. So I don't take away from that game that Duke was not able to be competitive with Florida State, just that maybe the quarterback situation was a little bit out of our control, and hopefully Mike Elko's able to turn it around and install a good game plan to go up against Louisville, because quite frankly, I still feel very positively about this Duke team. I thought that they handled a lot of punches in the mouth against Florida State pretty well, and I think they're going to continue to be competitive the rest of the way.
Sam, I love it. Great stuff, sir. Now you may right? Go away.
Did I get all the answers right? Did I pass the test?
A+.
You did, sir. Yes, A+. Go away, rest yourself. I'm sorry?
I said good luck.
Thanks. We will be talking to you later. Donald, now it falls to you and me. We have to now discuss the two big stories from the weekend, and we're going to start with Countdown. Not because the football team lost, but just we are the basketball roundup. So let's start with the basketball. The white team defeated the blue team by a score of 33-18. If you had white minus 15, you just barely you did not cover. Donald, let me start with this. When you saw the rosters, when you saw the breakdown of who was on which team, I don't know about you, but I looked at it and I went, Tyrese Proctor, Kyle Filipowski, Jeremy Roach on the same team. I think those might be the three best players on the team. Why are they playing together?
I mean,
I was not at all surprised that the white team won this one going away.
Yeah, and they kind of split it up, sort of evenly. At least they tried to. But Jason, before we actually get into the meat of the men's portion of Countdown, I want to pause. I want to put a timeout on that because I want to talk about just for a minute a couple of things that kind of preceded that. First, the women.
Please, yes, you're right.
Yeah, first, the women were a part of Countdown, and if you tuned in at 7:30 p.m. on the East Coast or 7:15, whenever ACC network kicked in, it started with the women's team. And look, the women's team, they are missing one player, Vanessa De Jesus, who hurt her knee in the offseason and is going to be out for the rest for the entirety of the season. But hey, even though this team really is 10 deep, this team is loaded. I am really, really excited about being able to see Jaden Donovan for the first time. She's our heralded recruit coming into this class. The whole class has been great, but she's the heralded recruit. I just want to mention her. Also, I want to mention on Twitter, you might have seen me going over some of the intros that some of the players did. One of the best ones, probably the best one, might have been Oluchi Okanyawa with her backflip intro when she got introduced. I thought that was pretty cool. So I wanted to shout out the women's team because they don't get a lot of love, but they deserve it. And also they're going to have a pretty awesome schedule coming up, especially the non-conference schedule. Looking forward to watching to see how they take flight as the season starts. They're starting literally in Cameron that morning that we play Dartmouth, or the men play Dartmouth that night. So it's going to be a doubleheader in Cameron that day. It's going to be a really, really cool thing. And honestly, I'm hoping for this women's team to really take flight and do a lot this season.
Yeah. So I also watched the game, and I have to say, it's tough because just like last year, it appears that the hallmark of Kara Lawson's team this season will be that they are really, really good on defense. Mm-hmm. And maybe not as strong on offense. We saw that a year ago. I think that we got more hints of it in this game. They struggled, they really struggled to score early on, but it was very fun to watch. You mentioned Jaden Donovan. This team also has, I forget her name, but there's someone on the team who can dunk. I think it's Kennedy Brown. Can actually dunk, and I'm maybe I'm wrong, and maybe someone else, but anyway, she's the tallest player in the team, so I think it's her. But I've seen footage of her dunking in practices, so a dunk is a rare thing in a women's game, so that's really cool. And they're going to be exciting. They're going to be a team that competes for the ACC title again, as they did a year ago, and Kara Lawson's got that program moving in the right direction in a very, very big way. All right. So
wait, one last thing I want to do. This kind of segues into the men, because I know it's going to get lost in the sauce of us talking about Countdown. But on Friday, before Countdown began, Duke men's basketball announced that Jon Scheyer had signed an extension through the 2029 season. Again, first of all, it was reported as a 6-year extension, so I know he didn't have a 2-year.
No, it's not. That's yeah.
No, Jason, what I think what happened is they took the original contract and ripped it up and said, yes, this extension starts now because it's a 6-year deal. Everyone does the math. 6 years from now is 2029. So, but hey, great idea. Also, if you think about it, it keeps in line with the extension that Duke gave Mike Elko in football.
Yes.
So they both expire around the same time. I believe Kara Lawson's contract It was extended to like 2027 or something like that a couple years ago. So, hey, this is great for Duke basketball, obviously well-deserved. And now we have a moment where we can say, hey, this is Jon Scheyer's program. That's kind of what this said as we led into Countdown, which is why I wanted to segue into it with that, because now when we look at this and some of the elements of Countdown that we're going to discuss, were clearly Jon Scheyer elements, and they are going to the fact that, hey, this is his program now. He can put his stamp on it, and he is free to do with this program and take it in the direction that he thinks it needs to go.
Well, so Donald, you've taken control of the podcast. I thought we were going to talk about Countdown first, and then we're going to do like the introductions. We're going to do the women. We're going to do Jon Scheyer. I had it all on my menu, man. It was all there. But you went ahead and did it for. That's fine. It's fine. No problem.
They're important.
These are yes. And look, whether we get to it now or whether we get to it in 20 minutes, not that big a deal, because all of you out there are listening to every single second of the podcast, right? There's no one's skipping. You're not skipping at all, right?
This is no skip episode.
No skip episode, exactly. All right. So I tell you what, let's keep with the theme of we're holding off on the actual play and get to the introductions. And I know you are the expert with the introductions of the players. But I'm going to give you a couple comments first, because I'm sure you'll have much more to say than I do. I want to give a hat tip, first of all, to Mark Mitchell and Neil Begovich, who both chose like pop songs that everyone in the crowd knows really. Taylor Swift, Miley Cyrus, Party in the USA. The crowd was rocking for those two. And those guys got the memo to get the crowd involved, even though neither one of them did very much dancing. The dancing was Jared McCain. My man did not disappoint. This is a dude who has millions of followers based on his dancing. You could tell he knows how to dance. And then the other one I wanted to shout out, and everyone's talking about it. Like last year, Stanley Borden pulled out a saxophone and played the sax. And you're like, oh, there's no way he can top that. Oh, yes, he can. Stanley Borden rapidly becoming one of the most beloved walk-ons in Duke history as he joins with a Duke a cappella group to sing Forget You. Stanley, I am dying to see what he has, in his hat next year. We may not see him in games very much this year, but Stanley Borden is a staple of the CTC introductions.
It was awesome to see him do that. And again, to show love to, I don't know, they didn't announce which group did that with him, did the song with him. So if anybody knows out there, so we can properly, give them their due, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. But that was awesome. It was easily the highlight night for me. I also thought Jeremy Kane doing his dance to I Just Want to Rock, very, very good, very in tune. Hey, you mentioned Neil Begovich and Mark Mitchell did a couple of songs that, I call them karaoke songs, right? Karaoke song, you don't need to actually do the song, but if it's popular enough, everyone will do it for you, right? Another one, Ryan Young came out to Mr. Brightside. Like that's
right. Exactly.
Ain't nobody. And I think Jeremy Roach ended with We Found Love in a Hopeless Place, but Rihanna ain't nobody. Like those are staples. There's a few, Jason, that came out to songs that I know and probably you don't, but that's cool. I thought they were all really good. And again, you get a little bit of the personalities of these players, and you get to, again, they get to introduce themselves to the student body and to the nation, really, for the first time. I think, honestly, Jason, there's one song that may have skipped over some people's heads. Christian Reeves, he came out to Drake and 21 Savage, Rich Flex. And if you listen to the lyrics of the song, the first part of it says, 21, can you do some for me? Which is Christian Reeves' jersey number. So that was a nice little thing where you couldn't really see the jersey underneath his shirt, but yeah, that was cool. But I think all of them were awesome.
All right, so I think that is an appropriate place for us to now move to the actual competition that we saw, the actual game. And seeing as you were talking about Christian Reeves, this has to be where we begin. As Mr. Reeves goes for 8 points, 7 rebounds, 3 block shots, 1 very sweet assist. I mean, I probably was more impressed with that assist he had. It was a play where he was a little bit off balance under the basket, and I thought he's going to try and go up and it's going to get blocked, or he's going to try and go up and he's going to block it himself on the rim. It was one of those, you could tell he was off balance. He wasn't going to get a good jump. And instead of going up, he found Jeremy Roach wide open in the corner for a wide open 3, which Mr. Roach buried. Donald, let us start with Christian Reeves. Are you in the camp that Duke needs to think about the big man rotation and that Christian Reeves needs to be getting minutes?
First off, Christian Reeves in blue-white scrimmages equals Christian Reeves All American. That is a fact that cannot be disputed. We have 2 years of solid evidence that this man becomes an All American basketball player when the lights are on him during the blue-white scrimmage.
Yo, can I remind everyone really quickly what he did a year ago, just so folks remember? He was 4 for 4 from the field, 3 for 3 from the free throw line. He had 11 points, 5 rebounds, and again, 3 block shots and an assist. Like almost an identical line year to year. The only difference was he didn't hit his free throws this time. He hit them last time, so that's the difference in his points. But other than that, almost literally identical from Christian Reeves last year and this year.
Yeah, and I think, one thing people need to understand, Jason, you, I, Sam, we are very good at overanalyzing scrimmage videos throughout the entire summer. And then we're the ones that come on and we see the blue-white scrimmage. We're the first ones to tell you, hey, don't take a lot into the blue-white scrimmage and how guys may play. It's a little sloppy. It's rusty. It's obviously an all-star game meant for show. Having said that, I think there are some questions about how they line up, at least, depth chart-wise, for the big men. Because as Sam mentioned, Christian Reeves got the start over Jon Scheyer, who we pegged to be a guy who would factor in heavily into this equation. So I'm hesitant to say that means anything beyond what we just saw on Friday night. But I think the real telltale sign is going to be when we see them line up against UNC Pembroke in that exhibition game on November 1st. That's going to be because that's the first time that we see this team of 14, 15 guys all play together with one basketball. It's not 5 versus 5 or 7 versus 7 where they're trading shots and everyone's on the same team going against each other. This is the first time they go up against people that are not in Duke blue. And that is going to be my telltale sign of how this lineup and how these rotations are going to be set. And again, the exhibition game is going to be where they kind of fine-tune things. You're going to start to see that. And I'm not sure what that means for Christian Reeves. Having said that, I think if it were me, if I'm sitting and Jon Scheyer calls me up and says, hey, D, what do you think about Christian Reeves? I think that he has earned at least an opportunity to show that he should be able to get some minutes. And I think that is where that's where the question is for the UNC Pembroke game and beyond. Has he earned those opportunities? I think the answer is yes, but we have to wait until November 1st to find out.
So I just want to remind everybody that when Donald and I got a chance to watch 50 minutes of practice footage where there was definitely a starters in white and subs in blue, and they gradually brought some of the subs over to the white team, Christian Reeves was one of those guys who never made it onto the white team. And I came on this podcast and I said, that says to me that he's not in the rotation. And by the way, Jon Scheyer did go onto that white team considerably earlier than Christian Reeves. In fact, Jon Scheyer went on to it before TJ Power did. So I think it is entirely possible that what we saw at Countdown to Craziness was, for a second year in a row, a little bit of a mirage. And that despite as good as Christian Reeves looked in that setting, he may not be in the rotation. And I'm going to tell you, Donald, what I think the key here is. The big question that we don't know the answer to yet, that I'm not even sure if Jon Scheyer knows the answer to yet, is does Kyle Filipowski play the 4 or the 5? The truth is he plays both in all likelihood, but the real question, how much time does Kyle Filipowski play at the 5? I am starting to come around to the belief that the way to get Duke's best players on the floor the most is for Kyle Filipowski to play the 5 20 plus minutes a game. And in a situation like that, Christian Reeves has a tough time finding the floor because I'm telling you, Ryan Young is going to be playing minutes. And I think that Duke's probably going to want to give Jon Scheyer at least some time. And in a case like that, Christian Reeves is probably out of the rotation. If, however, they decide that Kyle Filipowski is such a mismatch at the 4 and that they want him more on the perimeter and they don't want him picking up fouls guarding big men in the post, then if Kyle Filipowski's playing maybe 10 minutes at the 5 every game, well, then you're talking about a situation where Duke's big man depth needs to get a little bit longer. They need to find a few more minutes. And that could be a case where we have a situation where Christian Reeves is playing, if not every game, almost every game, and perhaps getting as much as 5 to 7 minutes.
Speaking of Kyle Filipowski, I think all of what you said is correct. And if you look at Kyle Filipowski, remember on Friday, that was really the first time that we have seen, and again, we've seen a lot of scrimmages. That was the first time we have seen him play 5-on-5. And yeah, whatever they did this summer to prepare him for this, A+ to the Duke staff, because he looked great on Friday night. He had the best dunk of the night. He yammed over. Jon Scheyer.
By the way, I'm very concerned that the police have a warrant out, because Kyle Filipowski committed murder on that play. It was very concerning. Any grand jury would indict him for murder for what he did to that basket.
The video evidence is right there, Jason. Like that, this is an open and shut case. But yeah, he did great. And I think, the question, the answer to your question is, I don't know whether or not he's going to play at the 4 and 5, because honestly, if you do play him at the 4, that means that Ryan Young is starting. And we've seen that happen, especially in the first part of last year, mainly because Derek Lively was out. But we've seen a lineup that features, these, 3 of these 4, actually these 5 starters, right? The guys that are returning. We've seen a lineup that has Tyrese Proctor, Jeremy Roach, Mark Mitchell, Kyle Filipowski, and Ryan Young. And it worked. So maybe he's going off of that, maybe at least to start the season and see how guys kind of play into it. And kind of also, remember, we have some big games this season early on. We have the Arizona game. We have the Michigan State game. So maybe it's a case of when you're not sure what you want to go with, you lean on your veterans to show the way. And maybe that's the catch here. And if that's the case, then yeah, Jason, he is playing the 4. That means Ryan Young is starting. And then you maybe have an opportunity for Sean Stewart, TJ Power, and Christian Reeves to carve out some minutes at that 5 position. I just don't know where his head is at. And honestly, he can go both ways. And honestly, I don't know if I have a preference. I think the idea is to get the best players on the floor for most of the time. And if that's the case, then we know who the 4 are. The question is, who is that 5th person? And that can be earned through practice.
Yeah. So you just mentioned the word best players. You mentioned the word veterans. And I want to move our conversation now to the guy who I thought was the best player in the blue-white scrimmage, a guy who is the veteran of the team, played the most minutes of anybody in a Blue Devil uniform, and that is Jeremy Roach. I think it is easy for Duke fans to sort of look at these shiny new toys of Jared McCain and Caleb Foster and go, ooh, look at these freshmen, how exciting they are. These guys who look like they have NBA futures and all this other kind of stuff, and forget that we've got a steady, experienced senior in Jeremy Roach, who frankly looks a little bit to me like he's on his way to having a Quinn Cookish kind of senior season. Jeremy Roach was the best 3-point shooter out there on the floor that, on Friday night, hit 3 of 6 3-pointers, ends up with 12 points. Just was nothing but steady. He had a couple steals. It looked like while everyone else, and I mean everyone else, maybe not Tyrese Proctor, but everyone else seemed like it was moving fast for them. I think for Jeremy Roach, everything was in slow motion. Like, dude has done this a million times. He knew where he was going. And Donald, I'm going to say it right now, when it comes time to predict who will be Duke's leading scorer this season, I'm not committing to picking Jeremy Roach, but boy, I really might. It would not surprise me at all if Jeremy Roach, as a senior, ends up leading Duke in scoring this year.
Jason, I'm going to use a golf analogy. Jeremy Roach is our 7-iron. When you think about golf, everyone, the motto, or at least the mantra for a lot of people, is drive for show, putt for dough. We focus on the people who can drive long. We focus on the people who can putt well. But every single time, there's people, for me, the 7-iron, every single time, tried and true. I hit the same way every single time. Sometimes that saves me. Sometimes it puts me in a great position to be successful. And sometimes it is the star in my bag. The 7-iron is always there. He is always going to give you what he gives you. And every single time is going to be perfect. And even when it's not perfect, it puts you in a position to be successful. That is Jeremy Roach. And this year, we may need more 7-irons because we have the drivers, we have the putters, we have all the other clubs in the bag. but we need that 7-iron to remain true, and that could be Jeremy Roach. I don't know if he's going to lead the team in scoring, but honestly, there may be games where he doesn't have to, because again, he can be the guy. He's got to be the barometer. He's got to be the guy who knows what we need on the floor. And as the captain, he needs to know how to get guys motivated to be in the best positions to succeed. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Jeremy Roach does over the year, because if he can be that tried and true player game in and game out, that consistency may help our team way more than him trying to score 30 points in a game.
All right, so we talked a little bit about Roach, talked a little bit about Flip. We certainly talked about my man, Christian Reeves. I want to hit two other veterans very quickly, two other guys that we know will be starting, Mark Mitchell and Tyrese Proctor. I thought both of them gave you about what you would have expected from them. Tyrese Proctor, I love, there was one point where he sort of unveiled a little bit of a shake and bake, like a step back kind of thing that ended up with him making a pass to Christian Reeves. It was a thing of beauty. I thought Tyrese Proctor, he had 3 assists and he just seemed in control the whole time he was out there playing. He missed both his 3-pointers. That's fine. I can live with that because we know he's going to make them at some point. But I thought Proctor just seemed the epitome of a steady point guard who made the guys on his team better. I'm not surprised that his team was the one that shot a high percentage and just seemed to, have things go well for them again and again because he was a steadying influence the whole time. And then really quickly on Mark Mitchell, didn't do a ton. I think it was sort of, it's tough for him not to be with the other guys who are the veterans. And I think that hurt his ability to get the ball in the right kind of spots. He had 2 really, really nice drives that he ended up finishing with layups. I feel like he probably could have done that more often if you really needed to. And he was the typical good, steady defensive player that we always expect from Mark Mitchell. What about anything on those 2 guys?
The Tyrese Proctor Magic Johnson no-look pass was awesome. I think that might have been the second best play of the day to Kyle Filipowski's attempted murder. But yeah, it was the idea with Mark Mitchell is in an all-star game, defense is not rewarded with highlights. And so it's okay for him to be that steady defensive player because it may not get the highlights. He may not get on SportsCenter with any highlight reels, but when you look at the stat sheet, you're going to be like, oh man, Mark Mitchell contributed. That's what I'm hoping for him for the season.
All right. So let's go through some of the freshmen now. Just really quick hits on each one of these guys. I'm going to toss them to you. Give me like 2 sentences if you can on each one. Start with Jared McCain. What'd you think?
I thought it was fine. I think he missed a couple of shots, but the shot still looks good. And again, I want to see him in competition against guys that don't know him and have not played against him all summer.
Yeah. My takeaway on him was that he could get the shots he wanted. Like he ended up taking 8 field goals. I like that from him. I want him with a high volume of field goals taken. He didn't knock him down as well as he'd like, as well as he knows he's capable of. But I agree with you. I think that when he's not playing against guys who know his game a little bit better, he's going to be very crafty in getting that shot off. All right, next one for you, Caleb Foster.
I thought he was fine. I mean, he had a couple of drives, and I thought that was cool. But, I mean, again, I want to see him continue to be consistent. We talked about that in the episode last. More consistency from him, and for him to be able to do that game in and game out and give us what he does best. I'm looking forward to see him and continue to improve that.
Yeah, he had a couple turnovers that weren't great. Caleb Foster showed he can get into the lane, he can get to the basket, he can use his physicality. His finishing could be a little bit better, but he and McCain, I think both of them are guys that may not start out the season on fire, but by December or January, I think are going to be in really, really good shape. Talk to me a little bit about what you saw from TJ Power.
I mean, TJ Power, I didn't see too much from him. At least that was noteworthy. But I do think that, again, he needs to be able to be consistent to try and carve out some time in that big man rotation.
Yeah, I think he may struggle to get minutes, especially early on. He and Jaden Schutt both knocked down their first 3-pointers. I was really happy to see that for both of them. I think that's a good confidence for them. They each later went on to miss a 3-pointer, but that's okay. Knocking one down 50% is perfectly fine with me.
You're not asking TJ Power to shoot 5 threes a game. So if he's knocking one down a game and he's only taking 1 or 2, cool. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, exactly. Last one that I think we probably need to talk about is Sean Stewart. We mentioned him very briefly earlier on. I did want to note one thing about Jon Stewart, that he had that play where he grabbed a rebound. He sort of looked around and recognized that it wasn't Ryan Young. Maybe it was Christian Reeves. Whoever was sort of guarding him was sort of even with him and wasn't getting back yet. And Jon Stewart went, oh, okay, I'm taking this baby coast to coast. And he took off. Now, he ended up missing the layup at the end of it. He made a nice move, by the way, to get all the way to the basket when the defense came to him and realized, we got to stop this. This guy's got a full head of steam. We got to divert him a little bit. And he missed the layup. That's okay. He showed his athleticism. He showed his skill. And I still think that there are great, great things with him coming in the future. I think Jon Stewart is going to struggle early on with the quality of other big men at this level. I mean, frankly, he struggled with Christian Reeves. A lot of the damage that Christian Reeves did was when Jon Stewart was in the game. And frankly, I noticed a little bit of, there was some switching and things that went on where I feel like Jon Stewart, I don't want to say he got lost, but he wasn't quite in the spot you needed him to be. Now, that said, I'm pretty sure Jon Stewart had a really nice block shot at one point. And again, I feel like he is someone who is going to grow into a larger role with Duke. But I have a feeling that early on, especially we were talking about, is Christian Reeves going to get minutes? I think early on, you may see Christian Reeves get minutes that Jon Stewart eats into over the course of the season.
I want Jon Stewart to trust his instincts more. And I think the play that you mentioned, where he grabbed the rebound and saw that he was even with Christian Reeves and said, I'm just going to go end to end and try to knock this thing down. That is a classic example of him trusting his instincts and saying, hey, I have an opening here. Let's take it. And he's not going to get a lot of those opportunities. So I want him to trust his instincts more. They're getting him into good positions. He just needs to have the confidence to follow it through to success.
Just really quick, I did want to mention that a year ago, Jaylen Blakes had an outstanding countdown to craziness scrimmage. He had 10 points, as you may recall. Everyone came out of it talking about Christian Reeves, but Jaylen Blakes was the other guy that everyone was sort of talking about out of countdown. Very, very quiet performance this year. I think, look, we know what Jaylen Blakes is going to give us. He's going to be steady. He's going to, give you minutes when you need them as a defensive pest, but he's probably not going to play a major role, especially in significant, ACC games and late in the season, postseason games. Anything else on CTC, or should we wrap this up and get to a break and then get to the football?
For Jaylen Blakes, stay ready. So you got to get ready. That's the key for him. Because if you remember, we said the same thing about him last year. And what do you know? There was a couple of times during the season where we had to, at least for a couple of weeks, where we had to rely on a lot of Jaylen Blakes because we had injuries or we had, guys that weren't playing well or in foul trouble. So Jaylen Blakes, stay ready, because there's going to be a point in the season where you are going to be called upon. I think that goes for everybody on this roster.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward. You pointed this out earlier. I'm really looking forward to the scrimmage that Duke is going to play in the next week or so, and getting a chance to hear about that. I'm also looking forward to Duke has a secret scrimmage, which is not a secret at all, coming up in about 4 or 5 days against Villanova.
They're coming up here.
Yeah. It's going to be really, really fun to I'm sure we'll get little hints. We may even get a box score. Last year we got a box score. We'll probably get some highlights and stuff like that, but I'm really interested in seeing what the rotations are, who's playing the most and all that other kind of stuff. And a good test against a team that is consistently good. And whatever we hear about that, we will bring to all of you. Until then, we still got football to talk about. We got to take a quick break. When we come back from the break, the Blue Devils versus Florida State. This is a heartbreak. Even though the final score looks outrageous, this is a heartbreaker for Duke fans. That story in just a moment.
Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Okay, we're back from the break, and this is not going to be fun, but we're going to talk about the Blue Devils' loss to the Florida State Seminoles in football. Duke came into this game ranked number 16. Florida was number 4. We come out of the game. Florida State still number 4. Duke falls to number 20, 21 in the polls as a result of a game where Florida State won at home 38-20 was the final score. That is not in any way indicative of what this game was. Duke had a lead in the fourth quarter. In fact, I think a lot of people thought that Duke was probably going to win this game until Riley Leonard went out with an injury. And to say that the game flipped at that point, like, doesn't even do it justice. It was so so different from the moment that Riley Leonard went down versus what happened prior to that. It's like, completely different team suddenly. Shows you what leadership means to this Duke team. Donald, give me your thoughts and impressions on a game that was, Duke on national television, the whole country watching. They saw that we can compete with the very best teams in the nation, at least for 3 quarters and a little bit of extra time.
Well, first off, hats off to Florida State. They played well, and it was not a indication of or instance of Duke played terribly and Florida State didn't deserve to win. They absolutely did. It was a great game. If you're a neutral, it sucked for us because we are not neutrals. We are very partial in this game, but I thought Florida State played pretty well, and I thought Duke played really well in the night as well. The defense, I want to start with the defense because the first 2 series, getting, turnover on downs on both of those series and then going down and scoring a touchdown to take the lead, like that is where everyone was kind of like, oh, this Duke team came to play. And they certainly did. I think the defense, time and time again, they didn't give up a lot of big plays. Obviously, they gave up some first downs. Florida State was able to move the ball a little bit in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter when the defense just got tired. And they were just tired because they were on the field quite a bit throughout the game. I think, Jason, not only did the game turn when Riley Leonard went down, if you think about it, it happened on a penalty. It was a face mask that really launched him into the air. And he landed awkwardly.
It was a brutal face. It's one of the worst.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it was intentional.
It wasn't. Like absolutely not.
He was reaching out, trying to grab Riley Leonard, ended up grabbing the face mask. And by the time you realize you're doing that, it's sort of impossible not to do it anymore. But that's one of the most brutal face masks that you'll see. He ripped his helmet right off his face.
Yeah. He even did it. The lineman like grabbed the face mask. And as soon as it happened, he kind of like did the yank again. It was this momentum kind of carried through the yank. And he immediately would just like put his hands to his head like, oh, I can't believe that happened. So it was definitely something where he wasn't trying to do it. And obviously, he wasn't trying to take Riley Leonard out of the game. But of course, that is a freak thing that happens where he launches him into the air awkwardly. He lands awkwardly on that ankle again, and he can't move. And to be fair, it seemed like Riley Leonard throughout this game wasn't himself. And of course, he was trying to tough it out with that injury, with the ankle coming back. But it was clear that the ankle was not ready. And what was most clear about it is that every single time he tried to throw a pass, anytime he tried to plant on that foot, it just didn't give him enough juice to make the passes that we know he can make. It also made it where he was kind of neutralized on the run. He did have a couple times where he tucked the ball and ran.
He had one run for 13 yards.
Yeah.
The Duke game plan with a healthy Riley Leonard is more than one run for 13 yards. I guarantee you that. Yeah.
And it was one of those things where once that happened, right, there was a couple times where he had to stay in the pocket or at least try to throw the ball away because he couldn't run. And Florida State tried to basically get him into positions where he had to try and make a bad decision with the football. He didn't make a lot of bad decisions, but a lot of his incompletions were a result of him just not being able to plant on that foot and give it the proper, mechanics that he needed to make those throws. And, Henry Beelan, God bless him, he came in a very difficult situation. And I think, there was a play where we could have gone for 3 points. We were knocking on the doorstep, but it was fourth down. It was right after Riley Leonard got hurt. And at the end of that, we decide to go for it on Henry Beelan's first play from scrimmage. He throws an incompletion. I thought it was a decent throw. He just led the guy a little bit too far. But that was the momentum killer because once that happened, Florida State marches all the way down the field, scores a touchdown, takes the lead, and that's the end of it. And it's unfortunate that the quarterback play on Saturday night was something that, again, like you said, it was something that you just can't really do much about. You have a guy that's injured. You have a guy who wasn't quite ready. and was thrust into a very big game at a very big moment, and didn't probably have the full playbook, so he didn't have the full confidence of the coaching staff to punch it in there. But this is something where this game was one where Duke really, it feels like a loss because it feels like something that we could have had if everything goes to great. We toughed it out against a really good Florida State team, and we still were in there to the end. Like you said, the score doesn't indicate that, but I think if Duke is healthy, if Duke makes a couple of plays here and there, and if Duke just really has the confidence to finish out these games, we're sitting here talking about a different situation this evening. But I do think this is going to help us moving forward, because we can't rest. We're going to Louisville next week, which is another big game in the ACC, and these guys have to kind of take that from last night, put it in the back of their memory, and say, hey, let's move forward and let's get this next game.
Duke has now played 7 games in this season. They have had a lead in the fourth quarter in all 7 of those games. They did end up losing 2 of them to 2 excellent teams, to 2 teams that are, considered to be national title contenders year in and year out. No shame at all in any of that. And in fact, it's an accomplishment that probably very few of us thought was possible for Duke this year, for us to be as competitive as we've been with a schedule as challenging as it is. I'm really hoping that Riley Leonard is able to get, if not fully healthy enough to play this game at Louisville, which is not going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, because this is clearly a different team with him out there than with Henry Beelan. Again, don't blame Henry Beelan for that. He is a redshirt freshman doing his best, but the team quarterback's the most important position on the field, and the team can tell when it's Riley Leonard back there versus Henry Beelan. Donald, one thing I wanted to mention was I feel like the backbreaker, the moment that the game really changed, wasn't so much when Duke didn't convert on that 4th down, where they could have kicked the field goal, they chose not to, and where Florida State drives length of the field to take the lead. To me, the bigger thing was the very next series. So Florida State now leads 24-20. They kick the ball to Duke, and Henry Beelan had a pretty disastrous series. Duke goes 3 and out. They lost 9 yards. They had 1 rush. They got blown up in the backfield. They had a procedure penalty, and then Henry Beelan had 2 passes that, frankly, neither one of them were very close to being completed. And you could just sense at that moment that Duke had lost all its confidence. You mentioned confidence earlier, but to me, and again, I don't blame Henry Beelan for this at all, but I think the team all went, oh, wow, what are we going to do? And I think especially for the defense, it was tough because they had been out there for a 96-yard drive by Florida State that had given Florida State the lead. They literally come over, they sit down for a second, they look up, and we're punting the ball again. You're just like, wow. And that's when I think Duke really got exhausted, and the superior athleticism and speed and physicality of the Florida State team started to take over. I don't know that it would have happened, if Duke even gets 1 first down on that series, if Henry Beelan even completes 1 pass and presents himself as a little bit of a threat as a passer, because what happened was Florida State started to load up on the run. They were just like, Duke's afraid to pass the ball. If those things happen, I think that Duke still has a chance in this game.
I think, first off, there was a couple other plays that I wanted to make note. I mean, I thought, again, Duke came right out and went right at him. Was it Jacquez Moore with the 42-yard touchdown run, the first touchdown of the game? I think the one thing that might have been a backbreaker when you look back at it, and even in the moment, it kind of felt like one. We had a pick 6 on Jordan Travis. It was Jordan Travis' second interception of the year. We have a pick 6. We're up 17-7. And on the ensuing kickoff, Florida State runs it back 99 yards for a touchdown. And we talk about
I can't believe we kicked it off to the middle. I as dangerous as they are, I would have been kicking it through the end zone every time.
And here's the thing. When you look at the replay, there was no lane for that guy. He just kind of snuck through a very small sliver. But hey, that's exactly why some of these guys are going to be playing on Sundays or at least returning kicks on Sundays, because that was an excellent play. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, we could have had this game going into halftime, maybe 20-7, maybe 20-14. Instead, it was 20-17, and it felt like, we're just trying to hold on, as opposed to this team here has a commanding lead, and has the confidence to finish it off, at least have the buffer to finish it off. That was one where I think it was just a super backbreaker. We talk about limiting big plays. That was a really big play, and it's unfortunate that it came on the heels of us making a big play and kind of neutralized all that momentum.
Hey, I do want to point out, it seems crazy to say, in a game where Florida State scored 38 points, I thought our defense was outstanding. They really kept, up until the end of the fourth quarter, we kept a dynamic offensive team completely under control. Our defense shows again and again and again that there's no team in the country that's going to feel comfortable scoring on the Duke Blue Devils. And again, I think that 38 is absolutely not indicative at all of the actual effort that went into the game on the part of the Duke defense. Well, the whole Duke team, but the defense especially, I thought was really just excellent. And I think everyone else Duke plays the rest of this year is going to really struggle to score. I'm dying to see us play North Carolina, which is another team that puts up big numbers on offense, because I think our defense can stymie anyone.
Jason, just looking ahead, I know we're going to talk about the Louisville game, which is the next game. We'll talk about that in depth later this week, but I just want to have people point out, again, we're going to Louisville next Saturday. They are 18th in the country right now, playing very well. I know they had just had a loss a couple of weeks ago, but they are playing very, very well. Then we come home for a short week. We have a Thursday game at home against Wake Forest. I would not be surprised, Jason, if we don't see Riley Leonard against Louisville, and see if we can get him almost 2 weeks off to rest that ankle and bring him back for Wake Forest. Because again, after that is the big game, the game at UNC, followed by a game at Virginia, where Virginia, who just beat Carolina yesterday at Carolina. So, and then we finish off against Pitt. But I think, this is a stretch where we have to make sure we are at our best. And I wonder if they are deciding if a 75% Riley Leonard is really the best thing for this team, or if we need to get him to 100%. Because as you said, when he's in the game, you want him to be able to do all the things that he does well. And if he can't, it changes the complexion of this team. And it's not his fault, because, it's an injury. That's what happens. But I wonder if they're going to say, hey, Henry, you're the guy. Get us back to where we need to go, and give him the confidence to say, hey, they're giving me the ball. I can be myself. And maybe the playbook's not as in depth, but at least I have the confidence to go out and execute the way I know I can execute without having to look over my back to see if number 13 is about to check in the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do this week to not only get Riley Leonard back to 100%, but to get Henry Beeland's confidence back as well.
Yeah, we'll hear from Mike Elko during this upcoming week as to whether or not Riley Leonard is progressing at a pace that would allow him to potentially play on Saturday. I'll tell you that I hope that he does. I hear the argument about wanting him to be fully rested and back to 100%. I'll be honest with you, these games are too important. There's still a very, very viable path. In fact, Duke controls their own destiny in terms of making the ACC championship game. I would love to play Florida State again with a healthy Riley Leonard on a neutral field for the ACC championship game, because I think this Duke team is good enough to beat them. And that's the path I want to have happen. And, if we lose to Louisville, I think that it becomes almost impossible.
More difficult. Yeah. More difficult at the very least. Yeah.
Yeah. Almost impossible, I think, for Duke to do that if we lose any of these remaining games. So they're too important. And frankly, Riley Leonard on Saturday night was begging to go back in the game. And Mike Elko had to say, no, the doctors say I cannot let you back in the game. I think there's no way you're gonna be able to keep him out against Louisville. He's gonna want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's not. This is where I'm not getting paid to make that big decision, right? That's Mike Elko and the coaching staff and the training staff and the medical staff. So I don't envy that position, because it's a difficult position to be in. Because yes, I'm sure they want Riley Leonard on the field, but also is it at the expense of, again, neutralizing some of the things that he does well? And also, are you robbing Peter to pay Paul? Like, if he gets hurt in this game, could he be out longer? And now you're really in a position where you have to go with Henry Beeland. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that this week. Riley Leonard's obviously going to try to get himself ready as quickly as possible. The question is, do we use them against Louisville? I don't know that answer, and I don't know if I like either answer, right? But it's definitely the position that we are in right now.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap it up here on episode 546 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Sam, thanks for joining us at the start. Donald, thanks for joining me throughout. I am Jason Evans. And this, by the way, this is the Duke Band. They're here to play us out and take us home. Yeah, and we'll probably also hopefully be talking a little bit about what the tea leaves are saying about Cooper Flagg and Patrick Gongba and VJ Edgecombe. Yeah. Didn't mention them at all on this edition because I haven't seen anything to say about it. So
all I saw was Cooper Flagg holding the baby. And they all we forgot to talk about how Jon Scheyer went to
join the crowd
with the crazies. Did you read were you in the chat for the line monitors? They were talking about he was reading the dirt sheet and was just like, wait, that's what you're coming up with? Yeah, so that's pretty funny. Now he gets to see how all this is made from both sides. So
yeah, exactly.
Good.
Yeah, I heard he said that's the one and only time he will ever sit with the crazies. Countdown to Craziness was like the perfect moment for him to do it. I wonder if also he wanted to maybe go over there and hang out with Cooper Flagg just a little bit.
Sure. I mean, the guys are there like, our coach just comes sits with the students along with the rest of them. Like, he's a people's man. He's a man of the people.
Yeah, I have to wonder. I mean, like, look, if you're Cooper Flagg, you went up to UConn and you saw them get their ass kicked in football by the Duke football team. Right.
Duke.
You didn't see any fan stuff going on. Although maybe he's from Maine. It may be that he's seen UConn games in the past. I wouldn't be surprised if he has. But then to come down and see for a blue-white exhibition, the way Countdown just lights up the stadium. I mean, I don't know what the guy's going to decide, but man, it'd be awful hard not to pick Duke after a situation like that.
I was basically just like, so are the Cameron Crazies just going to barricade them in the stands and be like, hey, we all got to go, but you stay here until you commit, and then you can come outside and join us in Kville. It would be great to get all three. That'd be super special. For again, the allure of like Countdown, and that's basically what it's made for, right? As part of that is to kind of see, hey, guys, next year this could be you walking out to your favorite song and having fans scream your name and all that. Like, it's a very nice spectacle that contrasts with a football game where said team is getting blasted.
By the way, I don't know how Scheyer does it. Like the notion that, and look, these guys are absolutely, there's no question that Cooper Flagg, Patrick Gongba, and VJ Edgecombe are seriously considering coming to Duke. When you look what the roster's probably going to be next year, I mean, it's sort of like this year. I'm like, how is TJ Power? How is Con Knuppel coming to Duke? Like all these guys, I'm like, how is Isaiah Evans coming? No one knows who, where's the playing time going to be? You're a top 15, top 10, top 5 recruit. Where's the playing time? But Jon Scheyer just keeps on convincing all these guys, come here. And it's amazing. It is so much fun.
It's his competitive spirit. Like,
yeah,
it's awesome.